Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good evening. Happy to have you here back for Monday Mashup. We've got a good one in store for you guys today. We're going to be talking about the Ducks handling business per usual. Ole Miss laying it down. Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin, they're not playing any games anymore, okay? The Gators have a little bit of a struggle with DJ Lagway. What future holds for them? Ohio State, Penn State in an absolute dogfight. Great game there. And then A&M. We are cursing these teams. The moment we say they're going to go on a run, it's absolutely over for them. Cody, the professor, joins us today. Bush Latte Strong, Derek, the hubris, Duck, Zelmer, and then Cowboy Ty. Yeah, I feel that. I feel
I'm in
that.
stone recovery mode from yesterday, boys. Stone recovery mode.
We were at a tailgate yesterday, all you can eat and drink, and Cowboy Ty was letting them flow. And then obviously after that FSU loss, it started flowing even more. But another great weekend of college football, boys and girls. Another great contender for some Heisman talk, which we're going to get into right away with the Ducks. The D in Duck is silent. The reason I titled it this because they are all reliable. The O and O is now stands for Oregon because we have reinvented this name. It came from Nick Saban in Alabama, but you got to hand it off to the Ducks this year because they're just handling their business. And we had Uncle Lou on last Wednesday. He made a great point that the Heisman campaign hasn't been as sexy for Dylan Gabriel, given the fact that their games haven't been as advertised. Outside of that Ohio State game, they're playing on Friday nights. They play late nights. They're not playing big-time games. They're just not. The campaign isn't there for Dylan Gabriel. A measly 294 yards, 2 touchdowns this past game against a tough Michigan defense on the road. Big noon kickoff. I kind of said last week, I said there could be a little wobbliness here, just given, another true Big Ten defense. You guys went in there and handled your business like a true Big Ten team. And I said before the show, you guys are operating like Michigan had in the past 2 years, or Ohio State usually does, just mowing through this mediocre Big Ten schedule. But when you have to handle your business, you are also doing that. That's not me taking a shot. That's a fact. You haven't. The Big Ten, it is what it is. It falls off towards the bottom, right? The top echelon, though, is a great holdout here. But look, that Michigan game, you guys are handling your business. And again, Dylan Gabriel quietly getting it done. He is going to be in that conversation. Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty, obviously, in the forefront of this conversation. Cam Ward will continue to be in this. But Dylan Gabriel is right in the mix of things. And as these games heat up, and Cam Ward and Genty and Travis Hunter, those games get a little more dicey for those guys, you could find them sneaking into the back. Again, I don't think the Ducks care about that, but it is interesting. And again, the Ducks look far and few between the best team in the country once again this far into the season. Derek the Duck, how you feeling, big guy?
Yeah, I feel really good about it, honestly. It's like coming off of this game, it's one of those things where we expected Oregon to go into the big house, even though it's a hostile environment, and just kind of take care of business, and that's exactly what happened. It never really felt like it was a overly competitive game outside of the first quarter. Oregon's offense felt like they moved the ball at will, particularly in the first half. I mean, they slowed down a little bit in the second half, but, I mean, that's what it is. The defense, once again, looked pretty great. They gave up a few more yards through the air than I would like to see. I was actually completely shocked that Michigan completed any forward passes at all. So to see that happen was, a little discouraging. But, at the same time, it is what it is. Like, I think just the eye test alone of what they were able to do with, like I said, in that hostile environment with a Big Ten opponent that you have to respect, just given who they are. Oregon take care of business. And as for the Heisman campaign, I mean, once again, Dylan Gabriel just adds another game with multiple touchdowns. And, every game he's been in a Duck uniform, he's scored at least 2 touchdowns. So he's taking care of business. And I think he's going to end up in New York at the end of the year. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but I think he's going to have his seat in New York once the finalists are announced.
Cody?
Boy, oh boy. So me and Derek did a Duck preview, and I think I was right. I was up 100% for 100%. Every big play that the wide receivers made was off a double move, and I said that. I said, listen, Michigan's susceptible. They're very aggressive. That you can hit them on the double move, and Holden hit it. Evan Stewart hit it on the double move down the sideline. It was one after another. Their running back duo of James and Whittington looked great, scoring touchdowns and running it all over the place. And then the defense They did give up some passing yards, but we all know what it was. It was to stop the Michigan run attack, and I thought they did a pretty good job there.
I'm going to talk about how the Oregon Ducks in this playoffs going to bold here in just a minute. But Cody, make sure he gets his licks in when he can, because sometimes his takes are a little cold. So I'm glad your take was right on this one, Cody. And look, I've been saying it this whole offseason. Eventually, it's going to get picked up by a big major program like ESPN on the fact that I keep calling them the perfect hybrid in the Big Ten. They've built a good line to where they can sustain the big-time runs and these big-time offensive linemen, but the speed they have on the outside is just unmatched. Like, the Big Ten has had no answer for it, and I don't think anybody will. I want to see an Oregon-Indiana matchup. I've seen the Ohio State thing. I'm not sold. Will Howard's trash. I want to see Kurt Singeti. I want to see what he throws at Oregon. I think that's going to be a phenomenal test, and both teams will make the playoffs regardless of what happens. So, Ty, your thoughts on that game, though?
Yeah, I mean, this is just a tale of two programs headed in different directions of this season. You got a new coaching regimen over there in Michigan, and you have Oregon, who has talent all over the field, and they are primed to make a national championship run. Once again, you sit there and you watch them. It's 1 week it's Evan Stewart, 1 week it's Tez Johnson, 1 week it's Trayshawn Holden, 1 week it's Jordan James, 1 week it's Noah Whittington. I mean, the talent's just endless over there. This game wasn't really a contest at any point. I know it was 7-7 after the first quarter, but you never really felt like Oregon was in any danger. And I would like to just thank you so much, Lanning, for making that touchdown with 25 seconds to cover the 14.5 and send the hook. Thank you.
Dad, get it done. We were talking before the show. I go, look, this Oregon team kind of falls into that trap that most big teams do, that they kind of go through their schedule. And again, this is not a shot to the Oregon fans. You play the schedule that you're given, but it is a matter of a fact, and I'm not hating on it. And then you kind of close out those big games there at the end, and you get into the playoffs, and you kind of get the kitchen sink thrown at you. There's an advantage with this 12-team playoff, where the team that you guys are going to have to go up against is going to play. They're going to play in a playoff atmosphere and come into that Oregon situation, wherever that bowl game is held, and be on that back foot. So getting a bye is massive. Being a top 4 team has much more value than it has had in the past, and I don't think people will start to notice or appreciate it until we see it unfold into the season. And there could be an argument of like, well, you see this in baseball a lot, but it's a little bit different with football. Is it playing that game one? Do you have a little bit of a rhythm? Are you able to work some kinks out? Will there be an advantage just kind of playing week over week? Now there are more games, so you kind of have that wear and tear. You take possibilities of getting injured, those things. But it's going to be interesting to see, is there an advantage of coming off that game from that first round bye? But that's far down the road, but it is just something to kind of start talking about and getting into. On Tuesday, we'll get the first seeding / ranking ESPN. I'll get to you, Cody, for the season. We're going away from the AP poll. So it could be, it might be, and probably will be much different than this AP poll that we got today. So the Tuesday rankings are going to be the true legitimate rankings that they utilize for the seeding, which is much different than rankings, which is, I'm like, why do you even have both? Just give me the seedings, because that's what gives me the playoff lineup. Cody? Of course, this show is brought to you by BetUS. And when you use the code YouTube150 at betus.com on your first deposit, you get back 150%, up to $2,000. Now, you can gamble on NFL, college football, basketball, baseball. The World Series are coming up. We got college football at an all-time high. Heisman winners are going back and forth. Who's going to the SEC? Who's going to the Big 12? All kinds of things. You can literally gamble on anything you set your pretty little mind to. And on your second and third deposit, you get back 125%, up to $2,000. So be sure to go check out betus.com. Use the code YouTube150 to take advantage of these offers while they still last. Now back to the show.
Yeah, so I think I made this prediction a couple weeks ago, and you guys thought I was crazy. I said, the road runs through Bloomington, Indiana, and you talk about a great take.
Nobody said you were
I
crazy.
I guess it's just coming to fruition again.
He's trying to overcome the Vandy take, and I get it. I appreciate it, but
I think we need to see the receipts. I'm not convinced this actually happened.
Yeah, it was about 2 weeks ago.
I do
Someone
remember
roll the tape.
I do recall him saying something about that. Let's talk about the rebound team here. And look, although this team didn't lose, they kind of went on a little bit of a sluggish route the last couple of weeks. People think that Lane's throwing games because he wants to come to Florida and all these good jazz, and that the team that we thought Ole Miss should be had not been. Their offense really hasn't been fantastic. They've got all this talent they brought on the transfer portal. It hasn't really showed up. There was a lot of concerns there, and you got Jackson Dart head down saying we got to win out. And they go into an Arkansas team that they are only favored by a touchdown, I believe, that a lot of people were, thinking this could be a close one. Arkansas has played a lot of good teams very well, has upset a few people. This looked like a video game. Jackson Dart, 515 yards, 5 touchdowns. I mean, they weren't holding any punches. Langos keep scoring again. I mean, they had one of our receivers had 260 yards receiving. It was a massacre. It looked like the good old fashioned SEC football where you had your top dogs going against the bottom. We've seen very good, I would say, across the board, a competitive edge with the SEC. This was the first week in the SEC where it was just, they don't belong on the same field as them. Derek?
Yeah, I mean, overall, this game was just incredibly entertaining to watch. And, this is the Ole Miss team that I think a lot of us thought we were going to get this entire year. I mean, obviously, with what they were able to do in the transfer portal and the offseason, I think a lot of people had high expectations for Ole Miss. I think they were ranked, inside the top 8 to start the year, whatever the case was. But this week they finally put it all together, and Jackson Dart, he was supposed to be a Heisman candidate this year. He finally played like you said, 515 yards, and I think he had 6 total touchdowns.
6.
I think he had
6.
40 some yards rushing too. So he was also doing it on the ground. And then Jordan Watkins, 254 and 5 touchdowns receiving is absolutely. Those are stupid. I mean, that is quite literally video game numbers. So it was an entertaining game. It's just, I don't know how much to buy into this one just because the product that Ole Miss has put on the field for the majority of the year to this point has not matched what we saw on Saturday. But if they're hitting their stride, Ole Miss has got a dangerous team. I think, they're going to play spoiler to somebody, and if they sneak into that playoff, they are most definitely a dangerous team.
Cody?
Boy, oh boy, I think Watkins was great. I think that Juice Wells looked good. But the unsung hero, the big number 89, when they need a yard, you go to the defensive lineman, the 315-pounder. He totes the rock. I think he got a touchdown also. Boy, oh boy, just the creativity on this offense is so exciting. Can't wait for Kiffin to be, a Florida Gator. It's gonna be so much. It's gonna be so fun to watch.
Unbelievable. Ty?
I love the fact that Cody brings up a defensive lineman when he hangs 63 with 550 yards passing.
Hey, big fullback, okay?
How I saw it is Jordan Watkins actually scored 4 touchdowns in less than 15 minutes. That's more than Florida State scored in 4 games.
Oh.
So, I mean, it was a track meet out there. It was tough. Arkansas had no shot. I mean, this is the product that everybody expected Ole Miss and they expect out of Lane Kiffin. And like I said a couple weeks ago, if I was going to pick one of these teams that could make a run for the playoff, this would be the team. Because if they play like this against Georgia, I do think they can beat Georgia, and they're going to be favored in every other game they play. So could get interesting.
They play Georgia next week at home. Ole Miss is at home, and if they play like this again, that Florida team you saw with the walk-on was able to go toe-to-toe with them up until the last wire there. That defense is good, but that offense is in complete shambles. Even after a bye week, they don't seem to have to find a rhythm, and you do not want to get into a track meet with Ole Miss. I think Arkansas learned that pretty quickly. So this is going to be huge implications of how the SEC unfolds with this game here. Georgia, Tennessee, A&M goes down. The SEC is in complete it's mayhem. It's carnage, as I said before the show. It's fun to watch. It's really cool to watch as a Gator fan. I don't mind the burning that's happening. It kills me because it feels like we were just a few plays away, which we'll talk about the Gators here in just a minute. But let's talk about the You Like That team of the week. And by golly, A&M. We talked last week. Are they a real contender? Here we are. Just like that. Back down to fall to grace. And you have to, obviously, I think we were a little high on them. You have to think there's going to be some concerns on Marcel Reed. But here's the best part. They got outgamed. They got beat by their own game. Sellers had, I think, 100 yards on the ground. He threw the ball very well. But defensively, this South Carolina team isn't no joke. They played LSU very well. They played Ole Miss, I think it was very well. No, they got clapped against Ole Miss. They've played some great teams and played them very well, right? And they've had some issues with injuries, Sellers going down. But Raheem Sanders had 120 or 150 on the ground or something like that. That guy was just unbelievable to watch as well, too. Again, they beat Texas A&M at their own game. Quarterback runs, quarterback sneaks, run the football, and just manhandle you defensively. That place was electric. I mean, the Gamecocks at night is such a fun place to watch. It's getting up there to be one of the, I would say, fun places to play for a college football team. They do it well. Shane Beamer is a goober. I love him, but he's the most awkward, just weird cat ever. He's dancing the locker. I don't get it, but the players love him. They come around him. They enjoy it. Beamer ball gets it done. He's celebrating with his son with 4 minutes to go on the sideline. He was just doing victory laps they just won the Super Bowl. It was super weird. We talked about this was it. This was it for the Beamers and the boys. They won their entire season, which kudos to them. But man, oh man, good game there. The SEC again wide open again now with A&M going down to South Carolina, Ole Miss and Georgia next week. This thing's gonna come down to the wire. Cody.
Boy, it was an entertaining game. It was run on both sides, and I'm going to tell you, the second half adjustments by South Carolina is what won the game. Mike Elko is usually the defensive savant, but he had no answer. They were faking pitches. They were, keeping the ball right where they wanted it with running the ball with the quarterback, Rocket Sanders, everything else, and Elko had nothing. No big stops on third down. That's his specialty. And then, he goes for it. And Mike Elko also says, hey, we couldn't get a half yard on fourth down. So I think at home, it's a tough environment to play for sure. And especially a night game. And Coach Beamer gets a big win under his cap.
Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Beamer, and it's he is a little weird, and he's a little awkward, but guys, sometimes guys just playing for that, and he's like a player's coach, and they like stuff like that. But as for the game, this was complete opposite of what we saw the week before. Texas A&M made all the adjustments against LSU and didn't let them score in the second half. And then this week, South Carolina makes the adjustments and doesn't let Texas A&M score. Raheem Sanders, the transfer from Arkansas, absolutely played out of his mind. This is a great young South Carolina team, and they're only going to get better. Sellers is a freshman, and they got a lot of young talent. So, I expect to see this team continue and probably upset a few more teams moving forward.
Derek?
Yeah, you talk about the chaos in the SEC. I think South Carolina has just embodied that throughout the year. I mean, even the close games you were talking about that they lost. I think it was Alabama. They played really tough and almost were able to pull off that upset. And then obviously you got a team like Vandy who's doing what they're doing. The SEC is absolutely crazy. But it's, it is ironic that we were just giving Mike Elko all this flowers last week and talking about Texas A&M as a contender. And one reason that we had said that we didn't know if they were quite for real at this point was because of the offensive product that they put on the field. And I think this week was the perfect example of why they're not there quite yet. They have a great defense for the most part. Obviously, that wasn't necessarily the case yesterday. It looked like they were absolutely lost at times. But I think it's one of those things where South Carolina as a program is trending upward. I mean, Texas A&M as a program is also trending upward from what they were with Jimbo. But South Carolina, they're a really interesting team to me, and I have a feeling they're not done playing spoiler this year.
They don't. The only thing they can't spoil too much. South Carolina left on their schedule. They got Clemson, and that would be only. They got Mizzou. Mizzou's kind of already spoiled their season. The SEC right now: Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and LSU all tied at one loss in the SEC. Again, Ole Miss with 2 losses, Bama with 2. Ole Miss controls their destiny because they play Georgia. Texas plays Texas A&M, so that'll eliminate that. Georgia plays Tennessee, so it's going to be a bloodbath down to the wire here. Now, as for peeled off, usually we peel off a team that lost, that was ranked, and there was a lot of those that went down this weekend. Iowa State went down, Kansas State went down in a close one, Pitt went down to SMU, got absolutely just obliterated. And so a lot of those guys could have made up for it. But as a Gator, we're always going to be a little bit biased here. And, we got peeled off a different way. As we lose our Lord and Savior, okay? We lose DJ Lagway to the Dogs, pulls a hammy again. We don't know how long. And a game where it felt like we had everything going our way for the first time in a long time. And DJ Lagway goes down, and the season seemed to has gone away with it in just a matter of seconds. I have been in complete shambles for the last 48 hours with this happening. You just felt the entire air go out of the room. And I talked about it on the Sunday show a little bit. My big concern here with this, and this is where, again, there's obviously the conversation and the argument for Napier, and I want to get your guys' thoughts and perspective on this too, but this is no shot towards Aiden Warren. But when you see here, we saw what DJ brings to the offense, and we kept talking like, hey, when DJ gets here, he's great for this triple option. He's great for the reads because of what he brings to the table. Okay, if that's your guy, and this guy amplifies your offense, why we got a cat from Yale as your third string? Why don't we have a guy that's similar to this? That's what, I got questions, Billy.
We got a guy. We got a guy.
Cody. But he wasn't recruited for that, Cody. This kid played high school ball.
Doesn't matter. We got a guy.
This is I can't this take here with Gregory Smith. I love Stephen Harris.
32 touchdowns.
The kid can sling it, but he hasn't thrown a ball in 2 years. Like
I don't care.
Okay, you wouldn't give DJ Lagway a chance, but now you want to give a kid that hasn't played in 2 years an opportunity?
The champ agrees with me.
You're both wrong, and I'll tell him tomorrow that he's wrong, or tell him later on tonight that he's wrong too, because at least he's consistent because he wanted DJ to start over Mertz. You wanted Mertz over DJ. So the same thing you're arguing now, you're countering yourself. I'm gonna let Derek go first.
Warner's not there.
Okay, yeah. First, I'm going to steer away from the whole Florida thing altogether. I want no part of it. The Florida fan base is clearly in shambles right now. I mean, you two sound like an old married couple. What I will talk about, though, is the fact that Georgia is not the Georgia we're used to seeing once again. Carson Beck has looked incredibly lackluster. And it's getting to the point now where we're approaching week 10, week 11 next week already, and we are still at the point in the season where we're asking ourselves why he can't get it figured out, why Georgia's offense has been spotty at best. I mean, even the Georgia defense at times has looked spotty this year, so I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's the 59 arrests that have taken place on the team over the last year or whatever the case is, but Georgia is not the Georgia of old. And, that's not to say they can't get it figured out because, it is a Kirby Smart-led team. And at the end of the day, they typically do play their best, when they need to. But right now, man, it's like with Carson Beck leading that offense, Georgia doesn't look great to me by any stretch of the imagination.
You could argue they're put off a little bit, too, with their ego and their swagger, just given the fact that they were going toe-to-toe with a third-string walk-on and Mr. Warren there. So, Cody, I'll let you get after it now.
Hey, you got the wrong team up there for peeled off. It's Georgia. They are a fraud. Fraud alert. Hey, Georgia's got the 2 worst quarterbacks in the SEC. They got Brock Vandagriff. He can't score for Kentucky. And then you got freaking
Beck.
You got old boy Beck. He's terrible. Hey, and you know what the best part is? I listened to my crazy uncle down there in Georgia, my crazy Uncle Lou, and he's worried he's going to redshirt or get his COVID year because he's playing so bad. You're getting another year of Beck throwing INTs all over the place.
It's a good point. He has another year he could play, doesn't he?
That kid is terrible.
Boys and girls, this is the part of the show where I make you look just a little more sexier moving forward, okay? Anywhere worth going is worth going in a nice pair, the perfect pair of boots from Tecovas. In the 2015, Tecovas was born out of Texas, created the perfect pair, handcrafted this beautiful, sexy piece of leather to go over your foot to make your wife or your husband go, damn, baby. That's what Tecovas does for you, okay? And not only that, what makes them so fantastic is their experience when you go to the store. You are treated like royalty. They roll out the red carpet. You walk in, beverage in hand. What can I do for you today, sir? Bam! Want one of those. Try them on. Rock and roll. Look good. Feel good. Play good, baby. That's what Tecova does for you. We are pumped to be teamed up with Tecovas. So be sure to go check out Tecovas. Head on over to Tecova right now. Use the code. Don't use the code. What you're going to do is right now, 10% off at tecovas.com/hightop when you sign up for email and text. That's 10% off at tecovas.com/hightop. Not the code slash, right there. So tecovas.com/hightop. See site for details. Tecovas. Point your toes west.
Terrible.
Yeah,
and
his
you know
draft
what?
stock.
I hate for injuries, but, every dog has his day, and apparently Trevor Etienne ribs were a little sore.
but he was getting torched every time he touched the ball. They made a point to hit him, which I not that I want him to get injured, but I liked the energy that was being delivered to him for sure. He was a non-fact. Ty, you were there. What your thoughts, Bubba?
Yeah, man. I mean, we talked about this prior to the game, and I said I think Florida's going to have a shot in this ball game, and the reason is because I wasn't sold on what Georgia was, and I think we answered a lot of questions that Georgia is not the Georgia we're used to seeing, and you hate to see them lose the way they did because DJ. Yeah, they were rolling. They had it, and their defense was playing with a lot of energy, and you just felt the air go out of the stadium as soon as DJ couldn't get up. I mean, the whole air went out of the stadium, and Florida fought as good as they could, and it wasn't enough because Aiden Warner's not DJ. I mean, let's just face it, he's not that guy, and it was a terrible situation because I really thought that Florida was going to actually win the football game, which is crazy to say, but I did think that they were going to actually upset Georgia because Carson Beck was throwing picks. Carson Beck is a fraud. I've been saying it since week 0, and you can go watch the damn take because everybody said, well, I don't know about all that. I said he's overrated, and now everyone's starting to see what I saw prior.
I actually had good takes, Cody. He's I'm just kidding.
I mean, golly.
I'm just kidding. I think your takes are oversaturated. I think that's where we're at. You sling too many.
If DJ Lagway doesn't get hurt, what's the score?
Cody had 75-0. I think. Look,
I mean, I definitely.
You take
too much. It's a 20-17 kind of game. I mean, it felt like that kind of game. I felt like they were turning the ball over. Like Lagway was only 2 for 6, but the offense was moving. It was doing things, and that's exactly what I expect.
That's my point. Is that, and even Lou was like he was 2 for 6. I was like, look, I get it on the sheets. The sheet and what he does on the field are two different things, and he wasn't playing lights out.
Don't tell everything. They don't. They just do not tell. You have to watch a game, and you have to see how offense flows with someone, and it was flowing, and it was moving very well.
You could tell when Warren got in, it was a wounded duck back there, and I don't look. I think he's a smart kid. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders, but I don't think he's not very good at reading the defense, and he takes 6 hours to throw the football. So, look,
he's a pocket passer. He doesn't bring that. He doesn't bring that energy, and the thought of the mind of a running quarterback now has left Georgia, and now that aspect is gone.
Yeah, they just sick them is literally like that was what they were able to do. The Gregory Smith thing, I got to talk to Stephen Harris about this. Look, I love it. The kid can sling the rock. I've seen it. I don't disagree. But you the dogs would be out if Bailey goes, hey, we're gonna put a kid in that's hasn't played in a year and a half, hasn't studied the playbook, hasn't done anything. That's the kid we're going to. Could you imagine what would happen?
Hey, you gotta play with your best option. We need an athlete back there.
This is
Caden Daniels or Gregory Smith. Why not? Warren's not the option. He's got a.
I understand your point, but you're literally just saying like.
And the Colorado kid won't get off the bench.
You think he's stuck?
He's
Derek,
stuck
can
on
you help me?
something.
Am I crazy? Am I crazy?
I don't think you're crazy. I mean, I don't necessarily think he's the guy either. But at the same time, I don't know how you can rely on someone who, like you said, hasn't had any real meaningful experience. And we're not even talking a year. We're talking about closer to 2 seasons. So,
hey,
I don't know.
He's an athlete.
I'm just glad I don't
I'd rather have an
turn
athlete back there.
I mean, there's plenty of examples I can tell you who's an. I mean, Anthony Richards is an athlete. He got benched to a 47-year-old man. So I don't know if they'd rather have an athlete back there. That's not. I don't think athletes are always the answer.
Putting you can't even judge Warren after this week because that is the most unrealistic expectation to have somebody in that spot coming into Georgia in one of the biggest games he's ever going to play in his life, and he doesn't even expect to play ever.
He drove down the field and got a touchdown. He was. I mean, he did his job. It wasn't like he was just completely I mean, he was a wounded duck compared with DJ, but it wasn't like he was just for the fact of the circumstances. He wasn't atrocious. I just if he goes out there and puts Gregory Smith out there, that just tells him that he's admitting that we haven't we are just in complete shambles, that I didn't recruit well. I haven't done any scouting because my two quarterbacks that I have on my bench aren't reliable enough that I have to go to a kid that played quarterback in high school, which that doesn't mean anything either, 2 years ago.
You've lost 7 quarterbacks under Billy Napier for not his fault.
Rashada was his fault. But I understand what you're coming from, but there's still that's you have to counter those things. You have to counter those things. Let's get into game of the week, which was we're headed back to the Big Ten. The battle of the can't win the big ones. This is why I'm not a huge fan of James Franklin. I've Ryan Day and James are in the same category as me. They've scooped by in the Big Ten. Penn State's always super highly favored. I don't understand it. I'm not a big fan of Drew Aller. There isn't anything sexy about Penn State. They pump a lot of talent into the NFL. I will give them that. Saquon, Micah Parsons, they do well developing, but it just getting over the hump, they just can't seem to get it done. And so you've got to, once the game kind of got off to a hot start, and then it literally was like, who wants to lose this game? 4th and goal, and you can't pop it in from a yard and a half. Come on, dude. That's just, both guys just don't want it. They try to get too cute when it doesn't matter. Will Howard didn't play well, but it was able to close it at the end of the game there with 5 minutes to go and manage that offense. So kudos to him. But this Ohio State team is going to get absolutely massacred by Indiana. Indiana, I know their schedule has not. Indiana, we say that, hey, they're going to lose to Nebraska. They may handle Nebraska. It's going to be a close one with Washington. They bend over Washington. This Michigan State team comes out 10-0. Everyone's like, oh, there it is. 41-10 their ass. You have to give respect to Indiana. That's what I was looking up. I wanted to see where they have them in the Big Ten. Okay, they're number 8. About damn time. They should be in front of Penn State. It's absolutely disrespectful they're not in front of Penn State. What more do you want from them? Look, we want to say SEC bias. This is logo bias. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, they're not a national brand.
This is not about the field. This is 100% a logo. You're 1,000% right about that.
Not enough logo fever.
They're not flashy either. They just they don't do anything great. They just do their job.
There's no Heisman candidate on that team. There's no big time player. Nope. There's just they literally are just a fundamentally sound football team. Like when you watch them, it's refreshing because college football is oversaturated with athletes and all these positions that can extend plays and make it look sexy, where Indiana's just good at football. And that is a scary team to go up against. I don't care how good you are. Look, you still need an athlete. You need a guy because come time, big crunch games, you're in the moment. Who is going to be the guy that steps up? I don't know. This team reminds me of the Miami Heat in basketball. Miami Heat for the last couple of years, although Jimmy Butler has been the guy prior to him being there, the team's always been good. Spoelstra is an incredible coach, one of the greatest coaches of all time. I'll argue till I'm blue in the face with the guys. That guy's a GOAT. You got Popovich, a few more, and then he's right up there in the top 5 coaches of all time. It's because he can coach basketball very well. But there was during these times when they made these big runs, they didn't have a guy they could go to, and you really need a guy in basketball. Football needs that presence as well, and they haven't had to have that yet. Not saying they don't have it, we just haven't seen it yet. Maybe we'll see it in a couple of weeks. Cody, I know this is your team. You're chomping at the bits. Talk.
Oh boy, for sure. The best thing about them is they've done it with a backup quarterback. They've done it with a starting quarterback. But let's get to Ohio State. You know, they won the game, and it was a slobber knocker slugfest. Will Howard made some mistakes, but also made some great plays. Defense showed up when they needed to. They beat Penn State, and that's an accomplishing win. But I still think all roads to the Big Ten. That side of the Big Ten runs through Bloomington.
Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually get a chance to watch this game because we were busy doing our show, and I remember it was 10-0 early Penn State, and then but I just kind of knew that this was going to be a Penn State thing. Like they only scored 3 points after that, after up 10-0. Because Penn State, you say there's nothing sexy about Indiana. There's nothing sexy about Penn State either. They don't do anything well. I mean, they just run the ball. It's like an old-fashioned football game. Like they don't look like anything special to me. I can't believe they're ranked in front of Indiana personally. As for the game, I mean, Drew Aller, 12 of 20, like they just tried to grind out the game, and they're just a boring team to me. Like they don't do anything special. They have one guy, Tyler Warren. I think he might be the best tight end in the world. Like he's that good. But besides that, they do not have anything sexy on offense besides 2 running backs and a tight end. I mean,
we were
that's it.
watching it during our live show on Saturday from Duval yesterday, and they went down 13-10. I go, oh, that's it for Penn State, because Penn State doesn't come back. They needed to stay ahead so they can basically run it dry and squeeze
They're
you.
just not built. They're not built for
the
it.
moment they went back, I was like, it's just they don't have that power, that firepower to get it back.
When you watch Indiana, you think they can come back. When you watch Penn State, you don't think they have a shot in hell. So in that point, I'll give me Indiana over them every single day of the week.
Honestly, I said, look, what's Indiana's weapon? Like, who's their guy? It's their defense. This reminds me of the early 2000s of Florida's defense.
Well, and it's multiple on offense, too, that run the ball well. They back shoulder fade more than anybody else.
But they score like on defense. Balls. They score as if like they draw it up on defense. Dude, it is so fun to watch. We'll wrap it up with Derek the Duck, who more than likely this is going to be where this pinnacle's here with the Ducks and Indiana. I think, Duck, you got to agree, this is probably the one team you don't want to face. If you could choose between Ohio State again or Indiana, I would pick Ohio State at this point.
Yeah, it's if you were able to watch this game, it was like, this game was not entertaining per se. I mean, I understand, it's two supposedly great teams, but it's like there was nothing explosive about this game, and it wasn't even like due to two great defenses out there. It looked more like one of those things where the two teams looked at each other and said, all right, you can have this game if you want it, and nobody ever took control of it. And Ohio State, they happened to bleed out the victory, but it was like it wasn't pretty. The same issues that they've been facing all year have been once again presented themselves this week. And like, I'm not a believer in Penn State, haven't been a believer in Penn State all year. And after watching Saturday's game, I'm still not a believer in what they are. I think they're highly overrated as well. And to be real honest, I do think you guys are absolutely spot on. I think Indiana is the second best team in the Big Ten right now.
Should be a fun one. The only sexy thing about that big noon kickoff is Gus Johnson. That's the only thing that keeps that thing lively. Watching those two teams go at it. I mean,
he's great.
That's best announcer in the world right there.
It's unmatched.
100%.
Give that guy a playoff game. I mean, why he's not calling with Kirk? I mean, him and Kirk are both color. No, him and Kirk can call it because Klatt's the color commentary. Yeah. So he could 100% call it with old Kirk.
I wish he would do SEC games. Truthfully.
Yeah,
he's great.
Fox owns him though. You got to get him off of. ABC. Or get him into ABC because now that's where he's at. Yeah, I think Gus needs to be passed around like some of the big ones and allowed to float because he's one of a kind
for sure.
to say the least, and really wakes you up at that big noon kickoff. I love it. I can't get enough of it. It makes it fun to watch. Well, boys, great show. Phenomenal topics. Another great week of college football. The Duck just mind his own business. Got a big old Maryland next week. Should be a good one there. But is it in 2 weeks? I'm sure you guys get an extra like 3 bye weeks out there at Oregon. Look, Team Out West is getting it done. You guys got looking sexy in your 19 uniforms, handling business. FSU's in shambles. I wasn't even going to bring it up, Tyler, but my God. There's like 3 people at the stadium. You guys look like a Miami stadium. You know what I mean? Like there is nobody.
You heard me. You heard what I said. You heard it on Saturday. I said we cannot compete with this team because we can't.
Yeah, you were spot on.
We couldn't score.
Yeah, good game coming up.
We're not good
the
at
third
any
best
aspect of
Tennessee team, right?
You got Notre Dame this week, right?
We might be Chattanooga will be a sweat. There is
that could be detrimental for the boys if that could be a rough one. Well, ladies and gents, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Monday Mashup. Be good. We'll see you guys later on tonight for Champ's Corner with Stephen Harris. We're going to talk about the game. Obviously, he's got some things, his thoughts, his opinions of this team. Billy Napier should be a good one. We'll see you boys in the next one. Peace and love, baby.